All right. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful thesis about oil. We're talking about how it's way more than just fuel, how it's actually the ultimate weapon of mass economic disruption, and we're going to break down exactly why. We're so often told to think of energy as just another input on a spreadsheet, another cost to doing business. But honestly, that misses the entire point. Every single thing we make, every service we provide, every mile we travel, it all depends on energy. So you see, energy isn't just a cost, it's the ultimate constraint. It's the very bloodstream of the entire global economy. So that brings us to the really critical question, the one most analysis seems to just gloss over. When that flow is steady, yeah, the global economy hums along. But what happens when that bloodstream suddenly clots? Let's dig into that, shall we? Okay, Section 1 is all about the deeper threats. And look, the real risk here isn't just, a price spike at the pump. It's about two hidden fragilities that are way, way more dangerous: geopolitics and chemistry. Okay, first up is the geopolitical risk. A huge chunk of the world's oil flows through these incredibly fragile choke points, like the Strait of Hormuz you see here. And a conflict in one of these narrow little gateways, that's not just some regional issue. It's an instant global crisis that literally holds the entire world economy hostage. But the second threat, and this is the one most people miss, is all about chemistry. See, we talk about oil like it's just one thing, but it's not even close. It's a whole spectrum, from heavy and sour to light and sweet. And that difference? Well, it's absolutely critical. And this slide gives us a great analogy to work with. Think of it like coffee. Light, sweet crude is your simple, easy-to-brew stuff. You can make gasoline and diesel from it pretty easily. Heavy, sour crude? Well, that's more like a complex 5-course meal. It needs a very specific kind of kitchen, or in this case, a very specialized refinery to break it down into something useful. And this, right here, is the absolute crux of the issue. You just can't swap one for the other. So when that heavy, sour crude from the Middle East gets cut off, all the light, sweet U.S. crude in the world isn't a viable replacement. The refineries in Asia, they're engineered for one specific type. It's a fundamental chemistry problem. And believe me, releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, that's not going to fix this. Not at all. Okay, on to Section 2. The cascade, because this chemical mismatch, it triggers this devastating domino effect, a full-blown petrochemical collapse that ripples way, way beyond the gas pump, right through the entire global economy. And this is where you really start to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. See, a key byproduct of refining is something called naphtha, and that's the base ingredient for petrochemicals. And petrochemicals? They're the building blocks of pretty much everything in our modern lives. Plastics, electronics, clothes, all the way to the fertilizer that grows our food. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. The very things that define our lives today, the phone you're probably holding right now, the clothes you're wearing, the chair you're sitting in, all of it traces its lineage back to a single barrel of crude. Our entire consumer lifestyle is built on this quiet, complex, and, as it turns out, incredibly fragile foundation. So what happens when that foundation cracks? Well, it's not a slowdown, it's a meltdown. Companies start declaring force majeure. That's basically them throwing their hands up and saying, we can't deliver, it's out of our control. Refineries shut down. Production across entire industries just grinds to a halt. And why? Because the essential ingredient, that base feedstock, has simply vanished.
And this is what triggers something the source calls boomerang inflation. Right when central banks and everyone else thinks inflation is finally under control, bam! Widespread shortages send it roaring right back, maybe even higher than before. The price of literally everything on the shelf goes up because the cost of its most basic components just went vertical.
All right, so that brings us to Section 3, the divide. Okay, so understanding this whole sobering reality is one thing, but actually investing through it, that's a whole different ballgame. So what does the investment thesis look like in this new landscape? The whole investment thesis here really starts by seeing this massive gap that's opened up between the political rhetoric and the physical reality. We hear nonstop talk about a fast green transition, but the physical world we actually live in continues to run overwhelmingly on hydrocarbons. And that disconnect? It's not just a talking point anymore. It is the most consequential and, frankly, investable theme out there right now. So in this new world, you can pretty much throw the old playbook out the window. Your focus has to shift from return on capital to the return of capital. It's about preservation first. That means protecting your capital with hard assets like physical gold and silver. It means seeing so-called safe assets like long-dated government bonds as basically uninvestable. And for your cash, you stick to short-duration corporate bonds. The bottom line is you have to prepare for much higher volatility and pretty dull returns after inflation.
And the source material really puts it perfectly. The market's physical reality is always going to win against a politician's calendar. The bottom line is the snow is coming, no matter what the leaders are promising. And in that environment, preparation is everything.
Which, of course, leaves us with one last, really crucial question. In a world where energy is literally power, where it dictates economic outcomes, you've got to ask yourself, is my portfolio really ready for the long winter ahead?
So if you want to navigate this incredibly complex reality, for some real strategic insights on how to position for the structural realignment, you can reach out directly to the Macro Butler. You can find him at the email and website right here. Thanks for joining me for this breakdown.